Salutations, my Fallout lovers. It is Matty here with the Lone Vault Wanderer with a bit of a polite rant, we'll call this, right?
Yeah, definitely. No getting angry.
No, we're not going to get mad, but we want to sensibly and calmly discuss a little predicament that's been rising in the Fallout community.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about Fallout New Vegas today and how, although it's a great game, it's been getting a lot more praise since Fallout 4's launch than before it. And
A lot more praise. It's crazy.
yeah, and it's been getting a little out of hand to some degree, I think. So, I think we should start off by establishing how we feel about Fallout New Vegas.
Sure.
I guess I'll go
Wanna go?
first. For me, I didn't come around to New Vegas. I actually looked up the video until I think it was January 7th of 2015 when I made a video
Yeah.
about how hardcore mode changed the game for me and how I felt that's the way New Vegas was played best, and I really appreciated the role-playing mechanics already.
Yeah.
But, the
Yeah.
world was always underwhelming for me. The locations felt useless until you played in hardcore, because then a lot of the things littered about in these locations, like the tiny ones that have like no story or no loot or anything, they became useful now. And I
Yeah.
felt mechanics like the ammo crafting and the staying hydrated, sleeping, all that stuff, they became useful as well, where it became a more complete game. So I don't know where you stand on New Vegas.
So New Vegas for me, I thought the story overall was much better than Fallout 3. I've always been very, very critical of the story in Fallout 3, so I like that about New Vegas. I didn't know how I felt about and this is a really, really crude way to describe it, the Western deserty feel of New Vegas. I guess that's just a subjective personal preference. But aside from that, New Vegas did make improvements over Fallout 3, which you would expect as a continuation of the Fallout franchise. But I still prefer Fallout 3 for several reasons. I don't need to get into that. But by all means, Fallout New Vegas is a good game. It is a solid game, and we're not denying that at all.
Yeah, so exactly what he said. We're establishing now that we don't hate this game. We don't have any problems with it. We played it a bunch before launch. But we're going to dive into what the main issue is going on right now, I guess. And it's this fact that Fallout 4 is, I think we can agree that it's not the best role-playing game.
Oh, I agree,
Yeah,
100%.
not a good role-playing game where you can't play as who you want to be. Great game in many other respects, but definitely not a role-playing game. While now people are going back to New Vegas and saying that it's the perfect game. And
Yeah.
this is bothering you and I because we feel like it's kind of this subjective opinion of people where we were kind of, and we're not saying this in a pompous way, the bigger sources for Fallout 4. People came to us for Fallout 4. So we saw a lot of Fallout discussions. And for me, anytime I saw someone mention New Vegas was better than 3, they had to either end their comment with, please don't kill me, please don't hate me, or it's just my opinion, please respect it. And then they would eventually get attacked on how 3 is better than New Vegas. Now, Fallout 4 is out, and everyone should die if they like 3 or 4, and New Vegas is the ultimate Fallout game.
Yeah.
And I don't get that. I don't think that's fair. I think that's a bit of a unfair change for the community where now it's like it's clear as day now that it's like if your opinion does not agree with the majority of the community, you have to be like self-conscious about that opinion and that you should not be expressing it.
And it seems generally as well that any kind of positive feedback given towards Fallout 4 is stricken down incredibly fast. And then a lot of the times you'll see New Vegas brought up as, as an example as to why New Vegas did this better, at that better, at that better. And I think at times it does get a little bit unfair. Even I've said in the past that comparisons to Skyrim are unfair, but we can cover that another time.
Yeah, and we have some actual examples here of what we mean, which you guys will be seeing on screen. So Lone and I decided, let's see the current reviews for Fallout New Vegas to see just how adamant people are about fucking things up. And so we went to Steam and we found out that it is now a 10 out of 10 game on Steam. A perfect video game that has no flaws because of Fallout 4. It was originally an 8.5, 84, something like that. Floating around the range that I think we would all agree upon. Like, it was a great game, but nothing, like, revolutionary. But then...
Well, no Fallout game is perfect.
Yeah, true.
Let's just put it that way. Yeah.
But then, you and I had a good laugh because we went on Metacritic. We went on Metacritic, and we see, by date, the latest reviews for Fallout New Vegas. I'll let you take it away because you kind of, like, counted them all up and stuff.
Yeah, so since the release of Fallout 4, which was November from memory, there's been about 20 or so plus Metacritic reviews, of user reviews that is, and most of them are 9s and 10s. There are some 8s in there, but predominantly 9s and 10s. But it's really interesting how these have come after the release of Fallout 4. But if you actually go to the average user score, which is obviously spread across many years now because New Vegas is a relatively old game, the average user score is 85. So you see, or 8.5. So you see how the mentality and the thoughts about this game have switched since Fallout 4 has been released. Now, of course, there's over 2,000 user scores, so it might be a bit, biased in that sense. But even on Steam and with this small example on Metacritic, it seems that New Vegas is now getting better reviews or is seen more positively in the eyes of the community because I'm going to say probably because Fallout 4 didn't do it as well as a good job as it should have in terms of its RPG elements. And I think that's the main thing. But what we're talking about is how the mentality is just swapped completely because if you think about it at the time, New Vegas was probably a better RPG than Fallout 3 was, but it never was Fallout 3 was never attacked on this level like Fallout 4 is being attacked.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not trying to white knight Fallout 4 here by any means. We are just Fallout lovers. That's why I start my videos. What's up, my Fallout lovers? We all just love the series, right? But you think of it this way. It's like now all of a sudden, because Fallout doesn't have those RPG mechanics that New Vegas had, all of a sudden we're sweeping under the rug that the world, and mind you, this is our opinion, or rather mine. I'm not going to speak for you. But for me, the world is still, pretty drab. It's a little boring. It's just sand, Not saying that it's a bad world, but it wasn't as appealing as Fallout 3 or 4, which I think played into the game's strengths. Don't forget, New Vegas, only a year of development, so heaping pile of bugs when the game started up. And then I kind of went into it a little bit earlier on how I felt a lot of the issues with the game were some of its locations that didn't feel fully fleshed out or anything. Like I said, not to say that New Vegas is a bad game, but to start giving it 10s and 9s because Fallout 4 wasn't the best RPG and did a lot of things right is a bit ridiculous. And I think a point that we need to bring to light, just not in terms of Fallout fans or the community, but I think for the games industry as a whole, right? These opinions make it hard for developers to kind of, I don't want to say crowdsource an opinion because I don't think any developer should really do that. But for them to just, if they want to go for feedback and they see that opinions flip-flop just after a game's launch, how are they going to take us seriously? Are they going to take anyone seriously if everything's changing where New Vegas was, I don't want to say hated, but you'd probably get shit if you said that New Vegas was like the best Fallout game before Fallout 4.
If you were following the Fallout community, and this is a simple fact, and anyone denying it might be a bit deluded, Fallout 3 was in almost all cases always preferred by the community over New Vegas. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that because I like Fallout 3 more. I'm not saying that because I hate New Vegas. I love New Vegas. But you can't deny that at the time, Fallout 3 was always seen as the better game as New Vegas. But then now you've just had this mentality switch where New Vegas, again, as Matty said, is seen as this perfect game. It's not a perfect game. Neither is Fallout 3. Neither is Fallout 4. And when people are making these comparisons with New Vegas and Fallout 4 now, they seem to be denying a lot of the issues that New Vegas had. It had a lot of issues. I've talked about in the past many times about how loading screens on the Xbox version of New Vegas were 2 minutes plus at times. It just became unplayable. At the launch of the game, again, because of the short development time, there were a lot of bugs. So much so that the PC version was actually rated higher by many games critics at the time because the PC version didn't have many bugs, but the console versions, which I played on, were buggy.
Yep. So
let's just remember and keep that in mind that New Vegas was not a perfect game, but neither was Fallout 3 and neither was Fallout 4. So I'm a bit confused as to why it's being held up to such a, an awesome standard. Like, yeah, New Vegas was this and that. It was a great game. It was a great RPG, but let's not over-exaggerate it here.
I mean, it's also one thing is that they're holding it up for one mechanic. It's a fantastic RPG that you can be and do what you want. But
yeah, that's one aspect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But then you look at Fallout 4, I think a lot of people could agree that the world itself, the way Bethesda built it, the attention to detail is fantastic and should be put on a pedestal. But that's not making it a 10 out of 10 game because of that one aspect. A 10 out of 10 game or a 9 out of 10 game is a sum of a whole, like it's multiple parts that all fit together, not just this is a great role-playing game, so bang, 10.
Yeah. And if you were to ask my opinion, let's consider, for argument's sake, that Fallout New Vegas is probably around an 8 to a 9. I hate the 10, 0 to 10 score, 0 to 100
Yep.
score, but let's say around that. I would put Fallout 4 in that same range as well. I'm not saying that Fallout 4 is a vastly better game than New Vegas. I would actually consider them, both having their own strengths, both having their own weaknesses, but I don't think one can conclusively say that one is better than the other. And that's just my opinion. But what I don't like to see is how so many people are saying New Vegas was undoubtedly better than Fallout 4. Certainly not. It was not. And I'm not going to say that Fallout 4 was undoubtedly better than New Vegas because it's very subjective. But, New Vegas had a host of problems that people are just overlooking.
That, and you think of it this way, there isn't a perfect Fallout game. Each one, when you think about it, has had an issue. Like Fallout 1 and 2 and Tactics, people have a problem with the gameplay. It's hard to get into. Meanwhile, their stories are great. The worlds are immersive. The quests are great. 2 had a lot of goofiness that people couldn't really get hooked on. 3, there wasn't that much RPG mechanics. New Vegas, bugs, world. And then 4, not that much RPG mechanics again. So it's like each Fallout that comes out has their own set of issues where there isn't this perfect one that should be put on a pedestal. It's just a series, and I'm sure one day someone will get it right where it'll be a good mixture of the world, the RPG, and all that stuff. And I can understand why people would go to New Vegas because that's the closest thing, because it has the great RPG mechanics along with the open world structure that people have come to love since Fallout 3. But it's by no means the definitive Fallout game. People have to remember that Fallout is a series and that we're all allowed to like whichever one we enjoy the most. Yeah. But to start going out and giving the game 10s and saying that basically any problem in New Vegas is now irrelevant because it's a good role-playing game is just unfair.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you alluded to before, I think, and probably you think as well, there is no definitive Fallout game. The reason why Fallout 3, I think, gets a lot of praise is because, think about it, essentially Fallout 3 was the savior of the Fallout IP. Put it that way. If Bethesda didn't purchase the IP, we wouldn't have Fallout right now. Or it would be in a very different form because potentially someone else would have bought it. And Fallout 3, again, was probably really highly looked upon because of what it did with VATS, for example. VATS was completely innovative at the time. Just thinking about how they changed that from the top-down isometric to how VATS stands in now. People loved it, and they still love it to this day because it was really, really innovative, as I said. Also, as well, again, save the franchise. It embraced the first-person / third-person open-world elements of past Elder Scrolls games, and I think it implemented that very well. So, again, probably for nostalgic reasons, Fallout 3 is seen as the definitive game, but it is not the definitive game. You can't objectively say that. For nostalgic reasons, people like it. For nostalgic reasons, a lot of people like New Vegas. Probably those that I played a lot of the older Fallout games because it, swapped back to the West and it really took on the aspects of, for example, Van Buren that were never implemented because that game was cancelled. But no one can say that this Fallout game or that Fallout game is the definitive because they all have issues of their own. They all have strengths. They all have weaknesses. And let's just have a discussion on that level instead of trying to rank them better than the other. Every time Matty and every time I say, this Fallout game is our preference, we say it's just our subjective opinion. It's our preference, not definitively. And if you argue you're wrong, that's definitely not wrong.
Yeah, you got to remember, an opinion is something that everyone has, and there's no such thing as a wrong opinion, so to say. There's not like a you like this, so you are wrong because it's not what I agree with. And when you say that out loud, it sounds a bit ridiculous, does it not? But we're not here to really defend our opinions, but more so just establish that, like Lone kind of went on for a little bit there, that there's no definitive Fallout game. It's just up to preference. But to just say that all of a sudden New Vegas is this amazing, perfect game and just overlook all its problems is just as crazy as saying that Fallout 4 is now the definitive Fallout game because it's new, because it's got all this great settlement building and world building and stuff, but overlooking its lack of RPG mechanics. Perhaps people don't like the voice protagonist, etc.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So let's have the discussion on those level-headed bases. Let's not just say for one simple aspect of the RPG, and yes, they are RPGs technically, but just because of the RPG elements, New Vegas is better than Fallout 4. Well, no, look at it pragmatically. Look at all of the strengths, look at all of the weaknesses, and then come to your own conclusion. And if then you still believe that New Vegas is the better game, then fine. But don't just say just because of RPG it's the better game, because that's not fair.
Yeah, it's more so just the insane 180 that the community had, and because I think it's going to be hard for a couple of listeners out there to relate to us because they didn't see as many comments as we did, where for me, every day I was always seeing someone getting trashed for loving New Vegas, but now you like Fallout 4, you're trashed. Like, you get trashed, you don't know a thing about Fallout.
Well, can I put it this way, right? So, on some of the Metacritic reviews for New Vegas, literally on this one review, the very first phrase is on a New Vegas review, Fallout 4 is rubbish.
Yep.
Like, are you reviewing Fallout 4 or are you reviewing New Vegas with the lens that Fallout 4 is just a shit game? Like, I just don't understand how people are bashing Fallout 4 so much and saying, nah, New Vegas is the better example. Well, if it was the better example, we would have heard about that when Fallout 4 wasn't even a thing, but we didn't. Again, as Matty said, everyone's just flip flop, and obviously it's not the same people. Like when we look at the internet, we can't say this person flip flop and that person flip flop. It's different people expressing opinions, but at least from our perspective, from what we've seen, and even Kotaku, as you said, Matty, before this, released an article saying, the sentiment of the community has changed, wherein Fallout New Vegas is seen as better as Fallout 4, and Bethesda might be feeling weird about that. But the sentiment has changed generally, especially if you just look at it, overarchingly. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, it's just, we just wanted to cover the bases here a little bit and really establish what we think is going on here in the Fallout community and how it's, I don't want to say wrong, but it's just a little strange, It's just a little strange.
Inconsistent.
Yeah. It makes it hard to, crowdsource any opinions to really get a feel of what the Fallout community wants. And I think come the next Fallout game, maybe they'll, get it right, because it seems like people just want a role-playing game with the world that Bethesda builds and good gameplay that kind of Bethesda threw in there, but with some of the creative crafting mechanics that New Vegas had, and then like a more fleshed-out settlement system, like the sum of the wholes, like I said, if you could combine all of those, that would probably be one of the better Fallout games.
Yep. Yep. So hopefully we can get that, and then we'll, get into a stage where everyone's reminiscing about how the next Fallout game is good across the board. And, being a Fallout fan, it's kind of disheartening to see so many people rip on Fallout 4, but they are for legitimate reasons. You can't deny that.
Absolutely.
But also as well, I felt the same way when people are a little bit bashing on Fallout New Vegas, but they were legitimate reasons too in a lot of aspects. So we've just got to accept that these games, they have issues, but we've got to communicate to the developers on a consistent basis. That's the only way that the franchise is going to improve.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to throw in there is that for the people who do go back and say, well, Fallout 4 is bad, so here's my New Vegas review, it's a little, you can't, I'm being honest and not, like, I'm not crapping on people for going back and reviewing games. I'm glad that people want to voice their opinions. I would much rather that than them sit on their hands and just be like, oh, wait for some YouTuber to do it. It's better if, a lot of people start voicing their opinions, because that's how you get attention, and the more you see of something, probably that's what the most consistent belief of something is. And so you think of it this way: if I went back to like review a game in a series, let's say, well, I don't know why, but this is the only example that's coming to mind right now, is Darksiders. Okay, I play Darksiders 1. Didn't really like it that much. Darksiders 2 came out in, I think, like 2012 or something like that. I played that. Don't think it's that good. And then I go back, and even though I released a review for Darksiders 1, I go back and make another review for Darksiders 1 and start raving about how good it is because I didn't like 2. That makes it subjective. It makes me tough to believe. It makes me not grounded in my opinion. And I think that's something that people need to work on nowadays. I'm not trying to give life advice here, but I'm just saying, remain grounded in your opinion, folks. If you truly believe New Vegas has and always will be the best Fallout game, awesome. Same with Fallout 3, same with 4. Whatever. It's an opinion, but you should also be grounded in it and be able to support that. Not be able to go back and be like, well, this game sucks, so this one's clearly better. Now this one's my favorite. You know what I'm saying? Because now you're feeding off of nostalgia. Now you're kind of reviewing games how they're not supposed to be reviewed. Games are supposed to be reviewed in its time of release, where you're analyzing it for what it is at that time. A lot of games would probably decrease in score over time because of the fact that they don't age well with games who push gaming forward.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it would be like going back to games on the Game Boy and say, well, those games are shit because they don't have good graphics.
Yeah, exactly. It's really unfair. Or The Witcher 2. You look at The Witcher 2 compared to 3, it's not even fair. But at the time, Witcher 2, granted, it came out near Skyrim, so it got overshadowed. But Witcher 2 is fantastic. But then you go and play Witcher 3, you're gonna be like, this game is incredible. And then you go back to Witcher 2, you're like, what the fuck were they doing, right? And it's like. Yeah. Then you make a bashful review on Witcher 2. It's like, no, for that time, The Witcher 2 was a wonderful game.
Yeah. And if your opinions are genuinely changing, then just admit that and realize, after playing Fallout 4, I've realized I prefer the RPG elements in New Vegas a bit more, because obviously there's not much of it in Fallout 4. That's fine, but just to say, well, New Vegas was always the better game than Fallout 4, well, was that the case? I don't know. It's yeah. Anyways, I'm done with it.
Yeah, I think that should be a good place to wrap up. You know, we really got a good stance on things now, I think. But
Yeah,
mind you,
definitely.
ladies and gentlemen, we're not mad or anything like that. We're not trying to tell you how you should construct your opinion, but we're just saying that the flip floppity of the community is a smidge ridiculous, and that you know, for developers to take us seriously, and like Lone said, for the series to actually progress forwards, we need to be grounded in an opinion and be able to construct it or intelligently construct an opinion and not just change because one game may not have a mechanic that we don't like. Instead of going back and saying New Vegas is better because of the lack of RPG mechanics in Fallout 4, say Fallout 4 could be better if it had RPG mechanics, and then compare to New Vegas rather than just trashing Fallout 4 for all it is and then saying that New Vegas is the dominant Fallout game. Because then they'll mimic New Vegas to some degrees that may not be to the liking of other fans.
I
But
agree.
yeah, just my thoughts there. Any final thoughts, Lone?
No, I would just like to see what DLC has to offer. I hope that Bethesda does release some new content, so we can see sentiments of Fallout 4 changing a little bit because I liked the game when I reviewed it, and it's harsh to see when something that you liked is just bashed upon. Obviously, for legitimate reasons, but when you love something and then people point out all these areas, you're like, yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right. I would just love to see, being a fan of the Fallout series, everyone just loving the Fallout games.
Yeah.
And I hope we can get there.
Yeah, it's all a matter of attitude. So that'll conclude that. Please go check out Lone. The link is in the description. He makes videos that are absolutely awesome. If there's any you'd like to specifically promote, now is the time.
Oh, thank you, Matty.
By any means. But anyway, we hope you guys enjoyed. And please sound off with your intelligent opinion in the comments down below. We would, as always, love to hear them. Other than that, we'll catch you guys in our next video.
Take care.